absolute pleasure to be invited at this event, and thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to share a little bit more about our humble journey on the Philippines market so far. As you mentioned, and thank you for the great introduction as well. As you mentioned, Finscore has been actively involved in bridging the financial inclusion gap in the Philippines over the course of the last couple of years. And the way we do this in particular is through our motto of credit scoring for all, which is cornered, or which is basically structured in the belief that financial inclusion is impossible without access to credit, and access to credit is impossible without access to high quality data sources. And what data sources represent is information. It's mainly about information about individuals. And as such, basically, we have built this in order to share our mental model. I don't know whether the audience can see my screen, but we have built out this financial inclusion bridge, is what we call it. And the building blocks of that bridge are the different data sources that are available in within the context of a specific market, particularly within the context of a market such as an emerging market such as the Philippines. So at the very beginning, you see typically that individuals are like ghosts to financial institutions. They are faceless, they don't have much context about them, and typically in developed markets, this is mitigated through either the infrastructure built by the government, so different kind of credit registries or income registers, or through private credit bureaus, which are still being, those rails are still being developed in the Philippines. So our primary point over the last couple of years has been to actually prove that in the absence, or while those rails are being developed in a country such as the Philippines, or in the Philippines in particular, there are other sources of information that can help out and empower the individuals throughout their journey and throughout them becoming actively served by the financial institutions in the country. As you know, a huge portion of the Philippines is either unbanked or underserved by the traditional financial institutions. And one way in which this can be mitigated is by giving them the ability to be more empowered by using their data. And when we say data, what we talk about is a couple of different things. Now, some of the data that users are generating is visible through their usage of their mobile devices, or through how they browse the web, or on which social media networks they are, or on which they aren't. And all of this information already starts painting the picture on a very individual level. Then, in addition to that, there is quite a lot of information that is already available in the existing enterprises within the country. And this information allows potentially, it's hidden behind walled gardens most of the time, it's siloed, but it would allow, in theory and potentially, throughout the connection of the individuals with those data, it would allow them to use this data to be empowered for the purposes of financial inclusion. And how we do this, I'll talk a little bit more with our first use case on the Philippines market when it comes to smart telecom. But what's important to keep in mind is that these are ecosystems, these are networks, typically, and those can be electricity companies, phone or internet or water companies, retail providers or retail chains, with which the individuals already have past experience with, past relationship with, and past reputation on. And the reputation on those networks is something that's actually quite valuable and can be used when building relationships with financial institutions. How we've done it so far on the Philippines market has been by partnering with Smart Telecom as being the first I would say, telco credit scoring provider in the Philippines, on the Philippines market so far, and essentially allowing users to share their reputation that they have gathered on the network of the mobile operator, and by using machine learning and big data algorithms, basically build out a credit score that shows their credit worthiness towards financial institutions in the absence of any other information about them. Why this is important? Well, particular and how this works is basically a credit score works something very similar to this. It's a band that comes from highest to lowest risk and typically returns a number that shows where on that scale a user is. But why this is important is because throughout the usage of our telco credit scores on the Philippines market so far, and since the beginning in 2018, we've delivered now actually close to 4 million scores. We have facilitated the disbursement through, of course, our clients and partners of about 500 million loans. All of this happens digitally and very quickly, and it essentially enables some of the individuals that otherwise would have been financially excluded, would have never have access to financial products, to tap into their reputation on the telco network and get approved for loans with their selected financial services providers. Now, the way and how this ties up with the financial inclusion bridge is that ultimately, as we discussed in the beginning, our client starts as a digital ghost. Once they climb up through the bridge, they are already turn into a person, turn into a client, someone that the bank or the financial institution that serves them can knows, understands, and has enough information about to serve profitably in a digital and a reliable way, which on its turn essentially leads to everyone along the chain benefit from the exercise. The borrower ultimately is able to, or the applicant is able to borrow funds by being empowered through their sharing of their data. The financial institution serves them profitably. The enterprise data providers can first, monetize their data, of course, but more important, empower individuals to use their reputation on their networks for financial inclusion, and Finscore fulfills its purpose.